We're live and local, joined by Dr. Marion Martinez, the Binghamton City School Superintendent. Good morning, Dr. Martinez. I'm well, and I thank you for joining us to chat for a few minutes, especially after what, by most accounts, was a tumultuous, an unusual school board meeting last night.
Yes, it was. I am disappointed with the reaction of the teachers and administrators, but not terribly surprised, because Binghamton is in the midst of systemic change, and that's disruptive to the organization. This is a transition phase, which is, anyone who knows anything about change theory understands the transition phase. It's a time when people are angry, they're uncomfortable, they're sometimes emotional because they're being asked to do things in a different way. We have been utilizing research-based strategies since I came to Binghamton. You will recall Binghamton, when I arrived, was in the lowest 10% of performing districts in the state. Functioning in the bottom 10% is just not acceptable on any level. And I realize that many people speak about the good old days in Binghamton, and Binghamton is a wonderful city, but you can't go back to the heydays of Endicott Johnson and IBM. We have many different challenges than occurred then. We have disproportionality. We've been cited by the state. We have 75% poverty. We have 25% mobility. And actually, what was very enlightening last night were the reports by 3 principals on their school improvement plan. And the techniques that they presented that we are seeing huge success with were initiatives that were introduced under my administration. So I understand people being upset, yes, but like I said, not terribly surprising. But
97% of the membership of the Binghamton Teachers Association is said to have supported this resolution seeking your dismissal.
Well, that's the key, is said to have voted in that way. I haven't seen any data in that regard.
Do you doubt? Do you have doubts about that figure, that most of the membership that voted in favor of having you leave?
I cannot speak to that if I haven't seen it.
Have you had any recent dialogue with the union leadership since this petition effort and the things got this serious in the last several weeks? Of course, there's, as you've indicated before, and we've talked about when you've been on the program here in the studio, there has been some ongoing discontent, whether it's at individual schools or among certain teachers and some other administrators. We've touched on that, but have you had any kind of reasonable dialogue with the Binghamton Teachers Association leadership in recent weeks?
Well, that's been very disappointing, because I have reached out a number of times and I've received assurances and one-to-one conversations. Oh, yes, we'll get back to you, and I haven't heard anything. So, it's much like a relationship. A relationship cannot exist with one person. And I continue to hear people professing we want to work together, but yet when you try to reach out, you don't get a response. And I think maybe it'll take a little bit of time.
What's your sense now? Do you have any sense of optimism that this relationship can be healed?
Well, as I said, this is all part of the change process. And if people are truly committed, I certainly am. I'm committed to working with people who are resistant to change and trying to show evidence, show the results of research studies that have been done on the very work that we are trying to do. And since I came to Binghamton, I instituted the strategic planning process, school improvement process, the monitoring of progress that we make, the collection of data to make decisions about what we're going to do in the future. All of those are very, very sound techniques. But again, I understand that people are resistant to change, and that takes time.
How is your relationship overall with the Board of Education?
My relationship is very positive. My last evaluation was very positive. And I realized that this is a volunteer group of people. This is difficult for them, too.
What's your sense of at this point of the school board members? Are some of the members inclined to go along with this request by the teachers union and the administrators?
That question would be best asked of them.
Have they offered you any specific assurances about your future at this point, either the school board president or individual members, that they're behind you?
I don't think it's appropriate to discuss conversations between the board and myself.
What happens now? So this was even though I wasn't there, based on the news coverage, this appeared to be one of the most contentious and most difficult school board meetings in recent memory for the Binghamton School District. So what happens next?
Well, I think you need to look at all of the comments that were made last night at the board meeting. There are people who are very concerned about disproportionality. There are concerns about equity for all students. There's concerns about violating students' rights, and those are issues that are very important as well. So to characterize it as total opposition, I don't think that that's accurate. Where we go from here, again, as I said before, I'm willing to work with everyone, including those people who are resistant to change, because I do think that we are on the right track. We have already started to see positive results from the work that we're doing. But, I mean, people continue to cite the graduation rate. I came in January of 2013. So the 2012-13 graduation data, I don't own. It takes time to put systems into place. I have been recommending to the board revision of the attendance policy, the grading policy. There are things that impact the graduation rate. I mean, it's not me in my office determining what the graduation rate is going to be. I brought in intervention services at the high school. We have the Promise Zone, Liberty Partnership, youth development folks who are reaching out one by one to students to try to encourage them to stay in school, to make the connections, personal connections, to increase student engagement. That is a very, very complicated process. And actually, our 5-year graduation rate went up because when children come into school and they're already behind in kindergarten, it's not that they can't learn, it's that it takes them additional time to learn. And they need to be encouraged as they're doing that.
Is some of this the problem that exists now? Is some of this a case of personalities clashing?
I can't speak to that. I think that this is very typical, as I keep going back to the change process. This is it's called transition. And change is a process. It's not a single event. And superintendents have to make difficult decisions, and I have made difficult decisions. I was brought in by the board in January 2013 to be a change agent because the board was not happy with the direction the district was going.
Do you think some people wanted some sort of miracle worker who could wave a magic wand and fix things much more quickly than is realistic?
Well, 3 years is a very short period of time. Again, anyone who has studied change theory understands it takes 4 to 7 years. We are embedding in our processes and procedures. We're embedding processes and procedures that will ultimately affect such things as the graduation rate. But along with that, you also have to look at the suspension expulsion rate. And we are trying to positively engage students so that they are able to get the instruction that they need to ultimately graduate. That doesn't mean that we want unsafe schools. Absolutely not. And I've been very clear about that. But we can't just wholesale exclude kids from school either. And I don't think anyone wants that.
We're speaking with Dr. Marion Martinez, the Binghamton City School Superintendent, who finds herself under fire with the unions, the Binghamton Teachers Association and the Binghamton Administrative and Supervisory Association, saying they want a different superintendent. Have you threatened to sue the union president?
I'm not going to make any comments about any action that I may have taken or will take.
Think there's going to wind up being legal action in this case on your part or on the part of the unions?
I think I just answered that, Bob.
All right. At this point, here it is, March 16th, 2016, with, I don't know if it's about 15 months or so to go on your current contract. Do you expect to remain as the superintendent through the end of the contract in July 2017?
Well, let me just clarify that. My contract goes until June 30th, 2018.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Well, I think it was incorrectly reported. The other issue that I think is important to consider, that we already had two of our elementary schools drop in standing. So they went from focus districts to priority districts, and failure to adhere, to monitor, to implement research strategies that will improve student achievement will only foster the downward slide directly towards receivership. And when the state comes in and takes over control of schools, they tell people what to do. And that's what will ultimately occur.
You see that as a real danger.
I definitely do.
So, as you corrected, with the contract running through the end of June 2018, more than 2 years, are you expecting to serve as Binghamton School Superintendent through the end of your contract?
I have not been told otherwise.
Do you hope to? Even with the clear, there's a lot of discontent right now among some teachers, administrators, and parents. Do you hope to remain on through the end of June 2018?
I continue to be committed to the work in Binghamton City Schools.
Have there been any discussions at all about your possible departure? Any negotiations with the school board?
No discussions. However, I'm going to continue to repeat any legal action that I have taken or will take is confidential.
At what point would we learn about that? Anything that could be publicized anytime soon?
I'm just not going to make a comment on that.
You still willing to come in the studio within the next week or two to talk not just about this, but
when have I ever refused to?
No, you've always agreed to come in, and although it wasn't too long ago that you were in the studio, but I think given, and again, not just this, the current situation surrounding your being superintendent, but other issues on the school, I would very much like to have you back in the studio within the next week or so, if that works with your schedule.
And whenever we have spoken about me being on the air, I have graciously accepted, and I look forward to it.
All right. Any other words that you'd like to add, especially maybe to the parents? And I know it's highly unlikely any students would be listening, but maybe they'll hear about this. But they have to, even those who aren't directly involved in the controversies that have been going on. What message do you have, say, for parents, students, teachers, and administrators, given what is an unsettling time in the Binghamton City School District? Yeah,
it very much is an unsettling time, but I am very hopeful in that I consistently heard that people want to work together. They want to resolve the issues that we are confronted with, and I stand committed to doing that work.
And so you believe this is a relationship that can and should be saved?
I definitely do.
Binghamton City School Superintendent, Dr. Marion Martinez, I thank you for joining us this morning, and we hope to have you in the studio perhaps the next week or so.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much.